unobhala on a contract. Every organization, especially the fire war, Commander Floyd Shivambu, they know now about it's time to move on. Last second line, Kumbuzala Mama Eti, Niawabona Lama Sela Ayatata Sela Ayatata Sela Ayatata Sela Asela Lubano Niawabona Lama Sela Ayatata Sela Yo Ayatata Sela So, Commander Floyd Shivambu, he is one of the political geniuses in South Africa. Because what happens as if the shortcut happens the product of the student movement. He was a leader of students at the university. Wow, a leader, we young communist league. Wow, a leader, we ANC Youth League. Wow, a leader, we Economic Freedom High Chance. Mdantsane, no balance, better people to Teta no bala, Teta no bala, Teta no nandi, what's your nandi, what's your nandi? Teta no bala, Teta no bala, Teta no bala, what's your nandi, what's your what's your Waza mkondo Gaza, waza mkondo Gaza, jigijela mkondo usizo jigijela.
Jikijela Mpoto, Jikijela. Viva ATM, viva. Peace in our land. Peace in our lifetime. Viva President Zuma, viva. Long live Namalala, long live. Long live President Zuma, long live. Forward to total freedom and emancipation, forward. Forward to total freedom and emancipation, forward. Amanda. Away to Maibuye. Ya Africa. Maibuye. Ya Africa. Thank you very much. The convener of deployees in the Eastern Cape, Sabulela Kakulu, advocate Dalimpo, who is the convener of the National High Command deployees here in the province, a very important province of the Eastern Cape. The leadership of the National High Command that is deployed with him, the leadership of the province, of regions, of sub-regions, the leadership of the ATM, which was acknowledged here, the apostles from the 12th Apostle Church in Christ that have joined us here. The leadership of the ATM, we must emphasize that Mkhonto Wesizwe and the ATM are strategic allies. And the simple way to explain what strategic alliance is that come 2026, DSG, and come 2029, so votanda onye. That is the principle that we have been given, that is the guidance that have been given by President Zuma and by the Chief Apostle Professor Nonung. So that is where we are. I also want to greet the traditional leaders, traditional healers, abafundisi, civic organizations, Abu Mama who joined us today, and they were blessed by the activists of Mkhonto Wesizwe with gifts that they came. But most importantly, I want to greet the ground forces and volunteers of Mkhonto Wesizwe and the people of South Africa. Comrades, the provincial coordinator spoke earlier to say that this event here in the Eastern Cape is the first of its kind of Mkhonto Wesizwe. We want to congratulate the deployees of the National High Command for putting this together. I think we must give them a round of applause. Do you know, on many occasions, whenever we have interactions with President Zuma, he always reflects very deeply about the province of the Eastern Cape. And he says that the manner in which we should organize ourselves in the Eastern Cape must be thorough, must be in a way that should inspire confidence. We must not rush things in the manner that it is. That is why, despite the fact that we have appointed provincial detachments in all other provinces, we had not yet appointed the leadership structure here in the province of the Eastern Cape. Because the president said that let us take our time and identify the leadership structures. Let's take into consideration, it's not a secret, the fact that part of the areas where our strategic allies is very strong at is here in the Eastern Cape. So in constituting the leadership of the Eastern Cape, we're going to take that dynamic into consideration so that we plan properly for 2026 and plan for elections not just to be opposition party, but to be government in all the 3 municipalities of the Eastern Cape province. President Zuma loves the province of the Eastern Cape. You must go and listen, even the current premier of the Eastern Cape province said it that of all the presidents that have ever happened in South Africa, President Zuma is #1 in terms of delivery of infrastructure and social services to the province of the Eastern Cape. The highest number of schools were built here in the Eastern Cape under President Zuma. The highest number of roads were built here in the Eastern Cape because of President Zuma. This mega project, which is happening of a huge highway built by Sanral, which is going to make transportation easier, is conceptualized under President Zuma. And because he has always held this province very dear to his heart. Now, comrades, I think all of us are aligned to the fact that we have to build a very strong and solid Mkhonto wesizwe here in the province. We're going to talk in detail today about the 31st anniversary of the first inclusive elections in South Africa. The convener of deployees is correct that we cannot boldly and correctly say that today is Freedom Day. We can't even say it is Independence Day. Because as things stand, we do not enjoy the freedom that was fought for many years, for many centuries by our forefathers. We do not have the independence which was fought for many years. So today we are just taking a pause to mark the 31st anniversary of the first all-inclusive elections in South Africa. Because the freedom that we are supposed to be celebrating should be celebration of a freedom that has got guaranteed water for all the people. But we know as a matter of fact that majority of our people do not still have access to basic water. So what is this freedom without water? What is this freedom without basic houses and basic sanitation? The people of the Eastern Cape still enjoy the most devastating levels of poverty in all the areas of the Eastern Cape. Healthcare facilities are not in good conditions everywhere. Majority of our people do not have access to proper health care here in the Eastern Cape province. That is why we cannot say that we are celebrating Freedom Day, because we do not have freedom in South Africa. Comrades, it is however important to highlight how 27 April 1994 came about. You know, from 1652, South Africa was invaded by white colonial settlers who took over our land and over the years took over everything else that defined us as the indigenous people of this country called South Africa today. And since they arrived to take over our land, they took everything else that is us. They took our cultures, they eroded our cultures, they eroded our languages, they eroded our identity, they took our land, they took our mineral resources, they took our knowledge systems as well. So what we used to know before they arrived, they said everything else that we knew is irrelevant, including our knowledge on how we take care of our health and how we attend to certain diseases. They said all of that is irrelevant. We're going to teach you the way of life. What that means is that from 1652 this way, there's been a systematic and systemic conquest of the black majority and Africans in particular. Whatever we can say, however strong and motivated we can feel sometimes, the reality still remains that we are still a conquered people by the white colonial settlers. There were so many battles of resistance fought in different periods in history, fought by different clans, by courageous traditional leaders and clans and warriors who resisted colonialism and conquest of our people. We won some of the battles there and there, but we have not yet won the war. There's so many wars of resistance that were fought in the Cape, in the Eastern Cape by our forefathers everywhere. Ultimately resulted in the consolidation of the colonial settlers institutionalizing the conquest into Union of South Africa in the 1910. The Union of South Africa was to say that it's a white-only government whose primary foundation was the oppression and exploitation of black people. Political parties were formed to resist that Union of South Africa. So in 1910, after the colonial invasion that began in 1652, they took everything. They killed our people. They took our animals. They took our identity. They subjected us to nothingness. They forced us into waged labor. When they discovered the mineral resources, in the beginning, black people were allowed to be involved in mining. They passed the laws to say, if you are black, you can't be involved in mining of diamonds, of gold, of anything. And when our people said that we do not want to work for these settlers in exchange of a wage, they introduced taxes to say that each and every person must pay a tax for staying in their own community, for just being human beings. They even introduce taxes for randavels, for huts. They introduced taxes for animals. For even domestic animals, they say that each and every person that they have conquered must pay something. And why did they do that? It's because they wanted to force our people into waged labor, so that all of us are forced into working for a wage. So the systematic and systemic conquest included the fact that our people were forced into working. They introduced something called the Glen Grey Act as well, to say that you are bound to work in the mines, to work for the white settlers, for you to be called South African. We have not yet won the war against colonialism and colonial invasion. And the evidence of that is the fact that we are still landless. We still do not own our cultural and knowledge identity. We still are under the system of white domination. Whatever you can say, if you check in South Africa today, the most simple illustration is just the basic illustrations of human development on each and every human being. Do you know, if you take white people in South Africa, the white colonial settlers and their descendants, and measure them by themselves, they will be in the top 10 or top 20 most developed nation in the world in terms of levels of literacy, levels of unemployment, life expectancy. So in South Africa, because of the conquest, because of the fact that we were defeated as black people who are landless, who do not have quality services, who do not have quality education, healthcare, even the life expectancy of black people is far lesser than the life expectancy of the white people. There's even more than 10 years difference. You know, we say, Mfundisi, the apostles, that sometimes when people die, that is the will of God. In South Africa, it doesn't look like it's just the will of God, because it's a socio-economic condition. Because it can't be correct that it's easier for black people to die than for white people to die. White people have got longer lives because they live in far much better conditions than all of us. They own everything. They own the mines, they own the banks, they own the chain retail stores. Everything. It's 31 years of the so-called freedom now. But there is no serious economic role player who looks like me and you. Do you know, in South Africa as we speak today, there is not a single black-owned chain stores that has got more than 10 stores, 10. But Pick n Pay is 700 and something stores. ShopRite is 1,000 stores. Spar is thousands of stores. There is not a single black-owned chain retail store in South Africa. 31 years after so-called freedom. In South Africa, there is not a single fast foods chain stores like KFC or Nando's or Chicken Licken, which is owned by a black person in South Africa today. Not one. So if black people have got, they are selling food, and we are the biggest consumers of food because we are, of course, the majority. If there is stores which are owned by black people, fast food stores, it's 1 or 2, maximum maybe 4 or 5. There is nothing that we owe. You know, even the clothes that we wear, everything else that we do, there is nothing that is owned by black people. That is an illustration that we have not yet achieved our true freedom and independence. By the way, there are countries not long time ago, like South Korea, even the People's Republic of China, who were poorer than South Africa. But today, those countries are able to produce their own things. They can produce their own cars, they can feed themselves. But ourselves, because we are a conquered people, we are still in a situation where we are just suppliers of cheap and easily disposable labor. To the extent that when we grow up, all of us as black people, when we are still young, when we're growing up, we grow up to be employed by our colonial settlers. The biggest achievement that we can have is that I must get a job. To work for a system that has conquered and subjugated us for many years. Now, comrades, the struggle against colonialism and apartheid is like, and has been like a relay race. There are those who fought when the colonial settlers had just arrived. They fought in so many battles but were defeated. There've been so much resistance against colonial invasion, but we have been defeated. And when the Union of South Africa was founded in 1910, the formation of the South African Natives National Congress in 1912 was a response to the formation of the Union of South Africa. So the formation of the organization, which later on became the ANC, was in response to the formation of the Union of South Africa. And in the beginning, yes, it was to say we are resisting the continuation and institutionalization of colonialism and apartheid. But to a larger extent, 1912, the formation was to want to bargain for the inclusion of some black people into the colonial government. The formation of the ANC in 1912 was for the inclusion of some black people into the colonial government. That is why the colonial government did not, in the beginning, did not see the ANC as a threat. In many of its first conferences, the colonial government will go and address the conferences of the ANC and say, we're listening to your concerns. It was just an organization which was treated that we hear you. They would even assist them when they will take petitions to Britain, to go to the Queen and say, Queen, we are under your leadership as the ANC and as black people in South Africa. Please just allow us some rights. That is how the ANC used to fight for our freedom. That is history in clarity and in fact. But the decisive change on how the struggle got to be conducted and what became the aspirations of the struggle came with the adoption of the Freedom Charter in 1955. Largely influenced by the radical politics of the Congress Youth League, which had been launched 10 years earlier in 1944 and had begun to radicalize the methods of struggle. Then the Freedom Charter became the rallying point for total freedom in South Africa. So our definition of true freedom as the people of South Africa is contained in the Freedom Charter. When they say, what do you mean that we are not free? You say, we have not achieved what the Freedom Charter said we must achieve. The Freedom Charter has been a rallying point for the struggles for total emancipation. Only after the adoption of the Freedom Charter, that is when the apartheid colonial government began to want to behavior and to ban political parties and criminalize everyone who was associating with the Freedom Charter. Because the Freedom Charter said that the people shall govern. So let's gauge today, if we want to gauge today's freedom, let's gauge it against the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter says that the people shall govern. Are the people governing today? No. A simple illustration that the people are not governing. 198 people, although there were elections, 198 people 3 weeks ago raised their hands in Parliament to say that we must pay 15.5% VAT without consulting us. There is, the way technology is so advanced, there are methods that we can be able to talk to the people. But some few people in Parliament, they say no, because you voted for us last year, what we think, we assume it's what you think and believe in as well. Because if the people were governed, important issues like the increase on VAT was going to be put on a referendum, and you ask the people, do you want to increase VAT? And we can tell you without doubt that the people were going to reject the increase of VAT here in South Africa. That is why Umkhonto weSizwe, we boldly and correctly say we are not going to be involved in elite discussions, in palace discussions on whether VAT must be increased or not, because we know that majority of the people of South Africa are saying VAT must not be increased. We know that we represent the majority. We are a party, a movement for the majority of our people. The Freedom Charter says the mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks and monopoly industries shall be transferred to the ownership of the people as a whole. Are our natural resources in the hands of the people? If anything, the mineral resources are a means to make our people poorer. Go and check the conditions of workers in the mining areas. Go and assess just what they're subjected to. And majority of these minerals are owned by the former colonizers. We are far from freedom. If you can control your own wealth, we are far from freedom. You know, the Freedom Charter says no one shall be imprisoned, deported or restricted without a fair trial. No one shall be condemned by the order of any government official. You know, it says no one can be taken to prison without trial. But this so-called democratic government, for narrow political reasons, they took President Zuma to prison without trial, without giving the right to respond for himself, that you have committed this crime. What do you plead, guilty or not guilty? They didn't, they just said straight to jail. Drop him. And then you say we are free when we have a state and government that can arbitrarily imprison even political leadership. What about ordinary people who do not have any political credentials? So, that is what we are dealing with. The Freedom Charter guaranteed everyone's right to work, to have jobs for everyone. Do we have got jobs in South Africa? So the Freedom Charter, you know, comrades, this is a very important issue to highlight. The Freedom Charter has been the rallying point for true freedom. So go and read each and every clause of the Freedom Charter. You will realize 80% of the Freedom Charter is not what we're living under today. This is despite the fact that the ruling party, the former liberation movement, says in their constitution that they exist to achieve the aims of the Freedom Charter. Those who are from Wagogo, you will know that even the membership declaration of the ANC says, I join to fulfill the aims and objectives of the Freedom Charter. But nothing of what the ANC does is Freedom Charter inspired. And we boldly can say that when President Zuma was head of state and president, he did everything in his power towards the attainment of Freedom Charter objectives. The Freedom Charter says the doors of learning and culture shall be opened for all. The highest number of no-fee schools in South Africa happened under President Zuma. President Zuma is the one who introduced free education at higher education level, even when his cabinet were refusing. Even when the Ministry of Finance was refusing. He said, why should people pay to gain access to education at universities of technology and TVET colleges? You know, comrades, we always give recount that there were so many sponsored disruptions and interruptions of the politics of President Zuma. The youth can go and check even on YouTube and on historical records. In 2017, when he was addressing the National House of Traditional Leaders, he said that I don't understand why black political parties should not be uniting to have 2/3 majority in order to expropriate, to change the constitution for expropriation of land without compensation. And he said that as a head of state and president. But side shows were what was being pursued. When a head of state says that let black political parties unite to be 2/3 to expropriate land without compensation so that we can give land to our people. Some of us, like mistakenly, were part of wrong things there. Like we say, no, we're fighting sideshows where a head of state is talking about the strategic resource of land and mineral resources to say, let's give this to our people. But the focus of where he was leading was that, no, he must pay back 15 million rand or 8 million rand for a house built for him in Kwata knows. And then we think that becomes normal politics as black people. And then we feel powerful about that when white people cheer you that, yeah, go on, fight on. They even join you on the streets. Zuma must fall. Zuma, and then we join, we think that is very powerful. When a president says that, comrades, let's unite all of us. Let's take land. Let's give free education up until higher education level. Let's give implements and tractors to farmers so that they can farm as is called for in the Freedom Charter. No, ourselves now, we don't want that. We want you to pay 15 million rand. Because government built you a house. That becomes the obsession. As if that is not enough, the establishment pushes him out of office and then later on takes him to prison without trial. It doesn't need any serious sophistication, just basic logic. You can realize that some of the things were done wrongly. Some of us are fortunate, comrade Dan, that we in our lifetime are able to correct historical mistakes politically. And we boldly will do that until the end of time. Until we have achieved total emancipation and freedom for our people. You know, no one in their right mind can dispute the fact that of all these people who have led South Africa as head of state and president, President Zuma is the only one who sought to achieve the aims and objectives of the Freedom Charter. The rest were instruments were just an executive that was managing the common affairs of the capitalist of the bourgeoisie. They would speak all sorts of sophisticated language and poems and all sorts of things. But in the ultimate end, when you assess closely, what is the real agenda? They were about protecting the white capitalist establishment and system. That is why President Zuma saw it far much earlier that now the ANC has been taken over completely. It's not even fighting for the Freedom Charter. It's just going to undermine everything. That is why in October, actually in the beginning of 2023, he said, we need to form a fighting instrument, a vehicle that is going to fight for true freedom. That is going to continue with the struggle for total emancipation. And then he said, let us go and revive Umkhonto weSizwe as a fighting instrument, as a fighting vehicle. And two issues must identify with Umkhonto weSizwe. One is unity. Two is total emancipation. On unity, President Zuma, far much earlier, even before Umkhonto weSizwe was publicly announced, says that why do we have so many black political parties when we are fighting for the same agenda? I can tell you now, here in Mdantsane, in Duncan Village, in King Williamstown, and all the regions here, I see there's a comrade here from the PAC as well. If you were to take black people from whichever political party, and then you say 10 commissions of 10, whichever, whether they are from the PAC, Black Consciousness Movement, ATM, ANC, black people, you put them in different rooms and say, please come out with the most important 10 things for black people. They're going to come out with the same things. Exactly the same things. Because we exist under same material conditions. There is no real difference between those who say they are part of the Congress movement, or they are Pan-Africanists, they are black consciousness, they are economic freedom in our lifetime. There is no real difference. What is difficult about uniting behind the common agenda? Because all these things, all of us, we want our land back. We want to grow the economy so that we can have sustainable quality jobs for our people. We want to take our children to better schools and universities. We want quality health care. We want to live in safe environment. You know, Thomas Sankara says that people are not fighting, we can't be fighting over ideas. We're fighting for the real material benefit of just what do we gain out of these struggles. Why then do we have multiple and viable fiefdoms called political parties? Why are we not uniting just behind one agenda? And fight for total emancipation and freedom. That is what Umkhonto weSizwe is. Unity of the oppressed masses of our people. That is why in the core values of Umkhonto weSizwe is that no matter how provoked you have been, you can't speak bad about other black person or any other political party. You are not allowed to even insult anyone. Because we are an organization that is pursuing unity. We know, comrades, that those who are incumbent in government have been misusing state resources and for personal benefit. But the manner in which we address that must be very firm, very decisive, but be very clear. But don't go around insulting people in the name of Umkhonto weSizwe. That is not the politics of Mkhonto Wesizwe. Mkhonto Wesizwe is an organization that is based on Ubuntu. It's an organization that is based on honesty and respect. It's an organization that is based on knowledgeability and meritocracy, on democratic centralism, on understanding the organic nature of the problems which our people are confronted with. That is why it is natural and easy for Mkhonto Wesizwe to associate with the African Transformation Movement. Because ATM has never been involved in insulting of anyone, but very firm on principle and what it stands for, and the agenda of black people. It becomes our natural alliance because that is what we represent. We do not stand on rooftops and insult people and talk about people's body parts. We talk politics only as what becomes the agenda for total emancipation. And we bring everyone on board in terms of what we need to do. So in consolidating the agenda for total emancipation and unification of the progressive forces, the leadership of Mkhonto Wesizwe, the membership of Mkhonto Wesizwe here in the Eastern Cape Province, let's go and build viable structures in all the municipalities, in all the areas. We want solid presence of Mkhonto Wesizwe in Jokabi, in all the 3 sub-regions of Jokabi. There must be Mkhonto Wesizwe in Elundini, in Walter Sisulu, in Maletswayo. In Senu, there must be a solid organization of Mkhonto Wesizwe. In Chris Hani region, the Inagum-Gijima municipality has been mismanaged for many years. They are even unable to pay salaries for their own people there. Mkhonto Wesizwe activists must raise their hands in Inagum-Gijima, in Ntsikayetu, in Sakisizwe, in Ngqo, and lead those municipalities moving forward. In OR Tambo is the most underdeveloped of sub-regions. In Bizana there, it's called Winnie-Madikizela Mandela Municipality. In Nyandeni, where the chief apostle comes from, there is no evidence that there is government of any form in Nyandeni. We have to consolidate forces and take over that municipality. In Muzahil, where the SG of ATM comes from, Lusikisiki, Flagstaff, we should liberate the people of the Eastern Cape. In Mtonto, in PSG, in Alfred Nzo, we need to have strong structures of Mkhonto Wesizwe and Matatiela and Tabankulu. We need to have presence of Mkhonto Wesizwe in Zimvumbu, everywhere that we have our people, they must be Mkhonto Wesizwe. You know, comrades, there is a region here where there is little attention paid on, despite the highest level of mismanagement of affairs in Sarabarkman. Here, when you leave Buffalo City, the first municipality is called Dlambe and Port Alfred. Those who have been government, they do as they wish there. In Makana, which had huge potential, has got historical significance. Because of Makana, the warrior, and because of what got to happen. There is no government in Makana, there is no government in Sanders River and Ado. There is a national park which exploits our people there. There's a municipality called Blue Crane. They do as they wish because no one cautions them against anything. In Bears not there, They do as they wish because no one questions them. In Kocha and Kokam, there is no one who questions the people that are governing those municipalities. Here in Buffalo City, those who stay here in all the native units, like these NUs of native units of Mdantsane, you know that there is no real difference between how Mdantsane looked in 1994 and today. That is why we continue to refer to our sections as native units. That must change when we take over the municipality. DSG. We should change even how we refer. We must reorganize Mdantsane into proper sections, not native units. Duncan village is a permanent informal settlement. And we don't even know who is this Duncan, who is Duncan village. It's King William's town in serious crisis. In Nelson Mandela Bay, it doesn't make sense why there is still unemployment in Nelson Mandela Bay. With so much strategic potential, there are ports, there is proper investments in the special economic zone. But the people of Kwanobush, of Motherwell, of Eitene, of all the northern areas the 21s in the northern areas of Nelson Mandela Bay, there is majority still vote for the DA and all because of the national question. But the poverty levels and as Mkondo sees, we should organize ourselves far much better here in the province of the Eastern Cape. It doesn't make sense that you can still have those who have been running these governments of municipalities since 1995 continue in office after 2026. Let's call on all the revolutionary activists of all the other formations to come closer to Mkondo Wesizwe, including those who are serving as councillors. It won't serve. You know what instructions you get from your political principals. They say to you, steal as much as you can because you are leaving power. You must tell them that you are not there to steal, you are going to leave and join Mkondo Wesizwe so that you can constitute a proper government in all these municipalities. Comrades, despite the massive contribution of activists of the Eastern Cape in the struggle against colonialism, long even before the formation of the ANC, the people of the Eastern Cape are neglected. There are still so many villages here where there is no sign of any government existing there. Where there is no water, no electricity, the schools are very far. The highest number of pit toilets in schools are here in the Eastern Cape. There is no evidence of any, but there is too much resources that are dedicated to this province. We need to build a strong organization that is disciplined, that is grounded within the people. We must not be swayed around by wrong narratives. We must not be swayed around by people who are going to say that Mkondo Wesizwe is an organization of Zulu-speaking people. That is not true. Mkondo Wesizwe is an organization of all the people of South Africa. And there is no tribalism in Mkhonto Wesizwe. You know, comrades, we receive all sorts of complaints every day as the Secretary General's office from all corners. There's never been a single complaint about tribalism in Mkhonto Wesizwe. They can complain about factionalism and parallel structures, but there's never been a complaint lodged with our office that says that there is tribalism. There is favoritism of people who speak isiZulu only. It's not there. Mkhonto Wesizwe is a national organization that is fighting for true freedom and emancipation. And appreciates the simple fact, it's in the Constitution, that the people are going to liberate themselves. In this Constitution of Mkhonto Wesizwe, it says, we are for unity, for total emancipation, but at the center of that is that the people are going to liberate themselves. What we do as a movement is to organize all of them into common purpose and action. That is what the movement is all about. Now, comrades, we did say that today we had to pause to mark the 31st anniversary of the first inclusive elections in South Africa. And we all agree, the people of South Africa know and agree, that today cannot be and it's not Freedom Day because we are not free. Today cannot be and it's not Independence Day because we are not independent. We are still directed by external forces that they've got their own interests. In conclusion, comrades, the president has guided the entire membership and supporters and leadership of Mkhonto Wesizwe that in our existence at VD level, at branch level, at sub-regional level, regional, provincial level, whenever we discuss politics, we must talk to what is Mkhonto Wesizwe's path to power. How do we persuade as many people as possible to associate with Mkhonto Wesizwe? The president also said we should discuss who are our friends here in the communities that we are existing in. Who do we relate with? Because you can't call yourself a representative of the people in the Eastern Cape or in any of the regions, in Amatol, but you do not know who are the large institutions that organize black people in Musha municipality, you must know in your local municipality as to who are the biggest institutions, whether it's religious institutions that are mostly composed of our people, and how do we relate with them? Because a political party must not be that something very far outside of the people. A political movement, Mkhonto Wesizwe, must be within the people. If, as a sub-region, as a region, as a province, in your leadership collective, in your membership, there is not people who belong to other institutions, then you are not representing Mkhonto Wesizwe, you are representing yourself. Mkhonto Wesizwe is a movement that represents all the interests of black people. That is why even in the Constitution we express the centrality of the religious leadership, of traditional leadership as well. Because we are an organization of the people. So as a branch of Mkhonto Wesizwe, as a region, sub-region, province, we must always know how do we form strategic and tactical alliances in our own communities? But also we must discuss as to how do we finance our revolution and programs. Comrades, the reality of the matter is that in South Africa as things stand, because of the fact that we do not have freedom, those who own their money in South Africa are opposed to Umkhonto weSizwe. The owners of money, the capitalists, are opposed to Umkhonto weSizwe. They will never donate to Umkhonto weSizwe. No matter what you do in terms of fundraising, they will never associate with Umkhonto weSizwe because Umkhonto weSizwe exists to undo white domination in the economy. So they will never associate with us for that purpose. So, but ourselves, as members of Umkhonto weSizwe, we must sit down and say, what do we do to make sure that we are able to gather and do door to door and speak to our people? The leadership will always intervene where it's possible, but we should, as members and activists of Umkhonto weSizwe, always discuss as to how do we finance the revolution. And the most other important thing which the president said must be our area of focus is the character and conduct of Umkhonto weSizwe revolutionaries and activists. By virtue of associating with Umkhonto weSizwe, if you had not joined Umkhonto weSizwe, you were intending to join, you must know that to join Umkhonto weSizwe means discipline. So if in your previous life you used to insult people, you used to wear t-shirts of your organization and go and drink alcohol and stand on top of a crate and do this with your t-shirt of the organization, in Umkhonto weSizwe such is not allowed. And then you think it's radicalism to insult people. Umkhonto weSizwe revolutionaries must always have well wishes for all the people. Must not be involved in factionalism. Umkhonto weSizwe revolutionaries must be able to repeat what they say in private publicly. If you can't repeat what you say in private publicly, then you are doing something wrong. If the messages that you send to people on WhatsApp or on WhatsApp groups or even one-to-one, if you can't own up to that publicly, then you are wrong. You do not belong to the movement. If you feel that you have got entitlement to sexual favors from people, then you do not belong to Umkhonto weSizwe. Umkhonto weSizwe revolutionaries are guided by maximum discipline. Our constitution actually says discipline is not a side issue, it's an instrument through which we are going to win the struggle for total emancipation and freedom. We can speak about the good aspirations and intentions of Umkhonto weSizwe, but without discipline, we are not going to achieve anything. Comrades, all of this we are doing because we want to win the people behind us, so that the people can be an instrument to take over political power in South Africa. It's not a secret agenda, it's not an underground movement. We are fighting to take over political power so that we can utilize political power to empower our people. That is what we are fighting for. And I can tell you now and be rest assured that the establishment is aware. The owners of money, they are aware that Umkhonto weSizwe is going to take over political power in South Africa. That is why whenever you hear their representatives speak everywhere, they say that all these other political parties are not a threat. The only threat that exists is Umkhonto weSizwe. We are going to take power in all the provinces. Here, in the Eastern Cape, we should be establishing government. We must prepare ourselves to take government in all the regions, in Nelson Mandela, in Sarah Bartman, in Amatole, in Chris Hani, in O.R. Tambo, in Joburg, in Buffalo City, in Alfred Nzo. There must not be a corner of this country that is not liberated. Comrades, we are done with KwaZulu-Natal. If elections were to happen tomorrow in KwaZulu-Natal, there is not a single municipality of the 44 municipalities which was not going to come to Umkhonto weSizwe. All of them. And that is the momentum that we must keep here in the Eastern Cape. And we are not doing that because we are self-seeking. We are not doing that because we want to pursue self-enrichment. We want to do that on behalf of the people. We want to do that because we want to bring about true freedom and emancipation for our people. Let's go out there, comrades, to speak to our people that we need true freedom for our people. And the only dependable and reliable vehicle to bring about true emancipation is Umkhonto weSizwe. So comrades, that is the message that we are sending from the National High Command. And an emphasis that we make is that in our struggles for total emancipation, we are forming strategic, proper relationships with other anti-colonial forces in the world. So Umkhonto weSizwe openly and proudly associates with the Communist Party of China and the People's Republic of China. We associate with Russia, progressive against imperialism. We associate with Brazil, with India. Here in the African continent, our obvious friends is Captain Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, who must not be touched by anyone. The era where the colonialists are going to kill our leaders has come to an end. So there is no one who is going to do anything to Ibrahim Traore. They could have done that to Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara. They could have removed Sekou Toure and Kwame Nkrumah, but they will not touch any of the African leaders. Not in our lifetime. We associate with the progressive government of Mali, of Niger. We affirm the incoming government of Gabon as well. Because there's a wave in the African continent to do away with colonialism. And the only force here in South Africa that represents the ideals of those anti-colonial forces is Umkhonto weSizwe. We are the only anti-colonial movement that is going to bring about true freedom. That is not scared of colonial masters. That does not report to colonial settlers. There is not a single colonial settler who can claim anywhere that they control Umkhonto weSizwe. It's an organization that is controlled by its membership and is in pursuit of the interest of the people. Let's continue to fight, comrades, until we achieve victory, because victory is certain. Commander Moni, Amanda, Amanda, Viva Mkhonto wesizwe, viva! Viva Mkhonto wesizwe, viva! Forward to total freedom, forward! Forward to total freedom, forward! Forward to total emancipation, forward! Amanda! Bathule nje basiqiniso awule ndawo sikukuyo bathule nje basiqiniso awule ndawo sikukuyo baphethe sibame sivutha umlilo awule ndawo sikukuyo awusikhokhele msholoze awule ndawo sikukuyo bathule nje basiniso awule ndawo sikukuyo bathule nje basiniso awule ndawo sikukuyo amandla sabulela Nkosi.